know about the impact of your trip to Hibbing and up north when you came here. How did that inform your performance?
I don't know, in more unspoken ways than not. You tell me if you can't hear me. I just felt like it kind of gave me sort of the energetic information of what Bob went through growing up. I feel like as an actor, if you don't know what somebody went through, you have the insecurity in a sense, or the lack of information, especially coming from New York, you know, what that would be like. So obviously, in a 2-day trip, you don't get the entire download of what that was like. But it didn't demystify it for me either. But I talked about this in the Zane Lowe interview. It helped see that his home was a home. You know, it wasn't. I don't know how to put it. It didn't. It wasn't far from what I could relate to. You know, and it helped find my way in. It's something I had to do, especially with the amount of time I had on my hands to do research for the role. Because if I didn't do it, you know, it just would have been strange. I don't know. And then on a totally separate note, nothing to do with Bob Dylan, and I mean it sincerely. I loved it here, and I love Minnesota, and I find the people to be really generous and nice and generous of spirit. And I'm sure it's not universal. I'm sure you have your fair share of assholes and all that too. But like, you know, I just think it's lovely out here. So I love visiting Hibbing and Duluth. Yeah, I did. Yep. Yep.
So Bob Dylan's public persona is very much an enigma.
Mm-hmm.
How did you approach that as an actor?
Well, did you see the movie yet or no?
No.
No. Okay, you're gonna see it tonight. Well, I feel like we didn't try to demystify the enigma, and in some ways, playing an enigma or someone who's enigmatic is almost easier in a sense because there isn't there aren't the hard lines to follow of a character or a story that was more classic in its 3-act structure. Somebody that went through addiction or somebody that went through a life tragedy. His is a story of someone who was quite successful quite quickly, and I think it's James Mangold who directed the movie that actually made it engaging, because otherwise, like I said, absent of tragedy, or even the Johnny Cash story, which our director did too, that's a story that's clearly about the human struggle in that is clearer. And like I said, this is about someone who quite quickly was very gifted, and from here. And you know, I talked about this in the Zane Lowe interview too. It's kind of fraught to make parallels with my career because I never want to put myself in the same boat as the legendary Bob Dylan, but it's something I can relate to too, where I feel like I did struggle in my career and I could speak to it in a different way, but equally my career did take off when I was 20, 21, 22, and the kind of rooms I was in, kind of like these press conferences that Bob was doing very young, I was younger than what the intellectual, circumstance was sometimes of the rooms I was in. So, yeah.
What attracted you to taking on this role?
Well, I knew very little about Bob Dylan other than that a friend of my father's growing up was obsessed, one of these Dylan maniacs and Dylanologists with a striking black and white picture of Dylan on the wall, and it was really sort of before the music, even the press conferences and the way he played with the way he really didn't get, and I thought that was deeply attractive and deeply deeply almost against the times we live in, and I don't say that resentfully, but it just seemed like he didn't care, and I thought that was just bold, even before I knew any of the music, you know? Yeah.
Hi, Morgan Wolf from Care 11. So I saw that you quoted saying crying, screaming, pooping after you saw Bob Dylan's tweet.
Yeah.
I want to know, did you get to spend any time with him before the film, and what does his tweet and approval mean to you?
Man, the tweet was, I really couldn't put it into words. That's the closest I could get to expressing how that felt. That other part you were describing was a typo. No, I just, total dream come true. If my interaction with the legendary Bob Dylan is limited to that moment, it will have been more than I could have ever dreamed of. And just sort of mind-boggling and very affirming, because beyond the movie, he says brilliant actor. So that felt really good. Yeah.
Marielle with CBS, and I just was wondering, we all saw you kind of have your tour around the U of M campus and walked the walk of Bob Dylan when he was there. What was your experience like today on campus?
It was great. I never got to have the classic American college experience, so I'm trying to truncate it in these 3 days. And No, it was awesome. I mean, obviously he came here for a little bit, or he went to the school for a little bit, and Dinkytown was very informative to his, folk music obsession. I loved it. Like I said, I love Minnesota and I love the people here. It's genuine. So, and my two buddies I'm with, we didn't go to college. I went to Columbia for a little bit. That doesn't really count as a campus, and NYU definitely doesn't count as a campus. So this is like a little slice of life today. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Faven. I'm with Minnesota Public Radio. Could you share more about what your research in Minnesota looked like to prepare for this role?
Well, it was 2 trips. The first time was only Minneapolis and Duluth. The second time was Minneapolis, Duluth, and Hibbing, where I was blasting Sun Records. I was trying to listen to all the music he would have been listening to at the time, and I was driving down the highway and passing all sorts of strange Minnesota casinos. And you know what I'm talking about. There's some strange. There were like some strange casinos in the way. And I was driving so fast I hit the ice in the Ford pickup I was in, and I skidded out. And this is the second time I went, and which was humbling because I didn't know how to drive on the roads out here. And I don't know how to describe those trips. They were just extremely informative and moving because even on this trip right now, which. Not to blow smoke up my ass. I mean, I don't even know if it's a good idea, but it was my idea. It wasn't the studio's idea. I just love it because as a New Yorker, I'm a 28-year-old New Yorker, I don't think my path would have really brought me out here, ever. So the first time I got here, I thought, wow, what a gift of Bob Dylan and being in this guy's worldview. And now, for some reason, I've brought myself here. Now I was in Duluth, and I'm staying in an Airbnb above the bread, whatever it's called, Duluth Bread Company. And also there was a casino across the street again there. So strange. And I was just like so grateful, so grateful, just cherishing it. Yeah.
Through this process, what did you learn about Bob's relationship with Minnesota, and how does that come through?
I don't know. It's like careful. There's the movie. There's the Bob I play in the movie. Then there's a real guy who's alive and well. So I really can't speak for him. God forbid he deletes that tweet, and then I'll feel terrible. No, but I think he's very proud of his Minnesota heritage, and I think. In some ways, the way I relate to it, though that's not your question, is I think the iron ore in his songs and the iron ore in his voice, I think came from the fact, I felt like that in Hibbing, to go back to your question. He's on his phone now, he doesn't care. But, no, I'm kidding. And, the tour I got in Hibbing when they were describing, I'm gonna butcher this, but like sort of mounds of factory residue that were, I don't know, I just informed the grit in his voice in some ways. It's different than what it would have been to have been raised in Hawaii or something, or even the Beach Boys. As I've gotten into the Beach Boys, again, I'm no scholar of the '60s, but their music sounds like the way they grew up. The way Bob Dylan's music sounds like his '60s stuff, North Country Blues and Rocks and Gravel. That sounds like Hibbing. When I got to Hibbing, this song Rocks and Gravel, which he never put out, I was like, man, this is what this looks like and sounds like, And as a young hip hop fan, I was like, oh wow, he was in a different texture, in a different form. He was doing the same thing in the '60s, representing where he came from, through his music. Yeah.
Hi. Kenny Johnson from Duluth, ABC.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
I know where Duluth's best friend is.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you do.
Yes.
Yeah.
My question for you is, when you went up to the Northland,
Yeah.
was there a specific location that really moved you emotionally as you were researching Bob?
Well, his house in Duluth, I never got to go inside of, though I think it's owned by the same gentleman that owns his childhood home in Hibbing. But that was extremely moving. And it was extreme. And in Hibbing, going to the high school, going to the, I don't want to say convention center, it's not the right word, but the rec center where there's the hockey arena. I also felt very moved that it was 2023, and also in some nostalgia, I couldn't even put it into words, but seeing how America had changed, or how it had modernized, or how it had decayed, and knowing Bob came up in a moment where it was post-50s, he brought what he had to bring to that generation, and realizing what a gift he was to the world, and also how, communities have been hard hit, and also how different, I had that experience too in Hibbing and Duluth. I thought, okay, this is great because it's informing to me where he came from, but this is also a very different place. The way I never got to talk to Bob about the role, but the way I comforted myself was the Bob Dylan of today is not the Bob Dylan of, the early '60s, because we all change, so, yeah. Okay.
Jay Gabler, Duluth News Tribune.
Cool.
So one of the songs you perform in the movie is Girl from the North Country.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a song where you obviously he's having this period in his life, he's having all these adventures out east, and someone's distancing himself from his past, but here he's singing, at least the lyrics seem to concern someone he left back home. As a performer, how did you get into that song and imagine what Bob might have been thinking when performing that?
Well, I don't think anybody knows who that song's about. I think there's 4 people that claim that song's about them, or 3 or 4. So, I mean, the great thing, Bob's got work like Death of Emmett Till or Talking John Birch, Paranoid Blues. It's very topical. But then songs like Times That Are Changing or songs like Girl from North Country, they're purposefully obtuse in my interpretation. Maybe he would disagree. So I think it matters less who that song's about and more what it's about, which is a love that you miss, especially at that age where you're so confused all the time.
Hi, my name is Mason with Minnesota Monthly Magazine. After going to Hibbing and spending time with the community and meeting folks up there, did you find yourself bringing any Minnesotan characteristics or quirks into your performance and your portrayal of Dylan?
Just the dialect, I hope.
Yeah.
But I was noticing it. I didn't tell anybody I was recording them all the time. But the hard R's and all that. But I couldn't say that because I was only here 2 days. So on the second trip. But it definitely stayed with me, and I definitely wanted to come back today and for the rest of this trip. Yeah.
Hi, Sophia with the Minnesota Daily. Were there any Bob Dylan songs that were incredibly influential during the process of filming and now during prep?
Oh man, all of them. And there's no good answer. Everything, all of them. If I could give, I don't even know how to answer that because it was everything. But I did try to stay away from stuff in the 80s or 90s where his voice had changed, or stuff that would sort of get me out of how he was in the 60s. Even in the books I would read, sometimes they would go into chapters on the 80s or 90s. I would try to stay away from it because it's sort of and like some of our castmates were able to talk to people they were playing, and I would say to Jim, the director, like, maybe I reach out to those folks and maybe get their perspective. But the winds of time affect everyone's opinion, and people tend to, present a more flattering version of themselves, and you never really know what happened. So, but back to your actual question, it was just everything. And I continue to discover his music because there's so much good stuff. Yeah.
I'm from Racket MN. You have had a little bit of a music career yourself.
Yes.
And in fact, a hit with Eat Skirt.
Okay.
I would love to know if and how that informed your performance.
Well, 100% informed it. In fact, that was the main inspiration. No, I think my musical prodigious talent is 1 gazillionth of Bob's, but I like that you like Eat Skirt.
We probably have time for one more question, and then
I feel like I flew through those. We were going to do a Bob Dylan style thing. He would have been taking his time. He would have been giving non-answers. I gave flat, direct, straight answers to everyone.
Hi,
Hey,
Tim Lambert's Forbes.com, and I think it's probably a big fear for any actor playing a real person, much less a real person who is living. Was there a particular moment during filming or a particular song where you felt that, okay, I know I'm not doing the impersonation, I've nailed the essence of this guy? Was there any particular
I don't want
moment?
to sound overconfident, but every song, I swear to God, because I lived with them for so long. And I feel like I could be out of bounds in answering that question because I don't know if I necessarily had a hold of, is this going to feel like Bob to an audience? It really just felt impactful to me when I was doing it. And now seems to be, don't want to get ahead of myself. Actually, I'll cut myself off. But they all were very special to me and dear to my heart. And I'm just giving you the goods. The truth is, the lead up to it was 5 years of practicing and messing up. And what was the original question there?
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, you don't want to go into this feeling like you're an imposter. You want to know that you're nailing the essence of this guy.
Yeah.
Like you're channeling Bob.
That was exactly it. And also Jim Mangold, the director, Walk the Line, which was a very, in my opinion, very adept Johnny Cash biopic where it's as much Johnny Cash as it is a story. And I think Jim had his eye on that. I think I got more into the rock and roll history and wanted to be to a T how Bob would have been, and Jim was much more wise about, hey, we got to tell the story here. And it's true. Movie wouldn't be interesting if you just see a guy doing covers. It's more about what does this mean in relation to the other characters in the movie, and what it would have been at the time. What it would have been for Joan Baez or for Suze Rotolo or Pete Seeger, to how were they related to Bob's music? How was Bob relating to them? How was Bob relating to the fact that they were, maybe had an angle on him? And we just sort of humbly brought life to that. And I'm very proud of that, One could say that this isn't a high-stakes movie, but I sort of disagree, because this is the stuff of life. In America, like our culture can be our highest religious calling, because it points the way forward. I think that was true in the 60s. I think it's very true now. Maybe even more true now, because we almost live in a harsher time, So I keep not answering the question, but yeah.
No, that's fine. Yeah. I want Charlie to get his in there, but I want to know, is it okay that Bob called you Timmy?
I love that. I was like, he hit me with the Timothy and the Timmy, so I was like, does he? It was too good to be true. How would he know this?
Well, I'm a Timothy with a Y. People call me Timmy too, so.
Nice.
Welcome to the club.
Welcome to the club.
Welcome to the club.
I'll see you at the convention.
All right. This is Charlie.
Hey, Charlie Oaks, WCCO.
What's up?
What was it like kind of retracing Bob Dylan's steps, Hibbing to Duluth, and the kind of the navigation of the character transition from someone like Bob Dylan to now Marty Supreme?
Oh, great question. Well, Marty Supreme, great question, man. Because I just finished that 12 hours ago.
Yeah.
But I want to speak on that so badly, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to keep it in the box. But both those films take place in New York. One takes place in the it's the 60s Greenwich Village, cultural renaissance. And Marty Supreme is sort of 1950s. I don't want to speak too much on it, or Josh will get mad at me, the director. But I had a moment the day I wrapped Dylan where I went to the Ilara production office, which is the Safdie production office. And I've been listening to Bob music for a year straight, whatever. And I switched my playlist to the Marty Supreme thing. And I was walking through the Diamond District, and I did have this out-of-body experience. Like, whoa, I'm leaving Greenwich Village and I'm entering this sort of like New York underworld. And then I was thinking about this morning, but I woke up in Minnesota the day after I finished Marty. So it's almost like I finished. I don't want to give too much away about that movie, but it's like I finished this, let's just say, really crazy thing, and I woke up back in safe Minnesota,
Yeah.
home of Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
like a warm blanket, Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you so much.
Welcome to Minnesota.
Yeah. Happy to be back.